A mother dies tragically during the birth of her twins. Husband goes crazy and does something chilling. This irresponsible action on the part of a clumsy doctor caused a terrible internal hemorrhage inside the body of a young pregnant woman, who quickly lost liters and liters of the vital red liquid as she struggled to stay alive. All because of the irresponsible doctor on duty, who now had to face the consequences of his actions and incompetence. Today you will learn the story of Christina and Alexis, two young and unfortunate parents who had always dreamed of forming a family full of faith in God and many children. Unfortunately, nothing would prepare them for the absolute horror and tragedy they would experience during the birth of their first children. Christina was a young and healthy new mother who was looking forward to the day when she would finally be able to hold in her arms the bodies of her twins Gabriel and Milagros, the first children of her humble family. What she didn't count on was that life would have a much more horrible fate in store for her than she could have ever imagined. During that winter morning, innocent Christina was rushed to the nearest hospital to be admitted to the medical center's delivery room for what was supposed to be a quick and simple cesarean section. However, something went wrong at the last moment, and in an act of carelessness and lack of ethics, the inept doctor attending to poor Christina made a very abrupt cut in the woman's belly, and as a result, accidentally perforated not one, but two major arteries, causing very serious internal bleeding in the innocent Christina, who lost consciousness within minutes, all before the incredulous gaze of her husband Alexis, who could not understand what had happened to his wife. Quickly, the white and delicate skin of the young Christina was turning a sickly shade between gray and blue, the product of the great loss of blood she had suffered, while life slowly left her body to join the heavenly Lord. In the meantime, all the alarms went off in the hospital, and the workers ran from one side to the other to take the pregnant woman quickly to surgery. The rules that the hospital had in these cases were very clear, and said that before trying to save the life of the mother, the babies she was carrying in her womb had to be saved first, since 2 lives saved were worth more than 1. For that reason, the cesarean section had to continue until the last consequences, no matter that poor Christina was bleeding to death literally minute by minute. Alexis, upon learning of such madness, cried out in tears and desperation, asking them to do everything possible to save the life of his beloved young woman, the person he loved and valued most in this world. Unfortunately, the doctors and nurses ignored him, and even more irresponsibly, hid the truth about the bad cesarean section performed at the hospital, all to protect themselves from a possible lawsuit. At that moment, Alexis began to cry like a little child. He had never gone through such a situation in his life, full of despair and suffering. Alexis and Christina were a very close and loving couple, constantly thanking God for the good relationship they had and the life they were about to build. For a moment, Alexis remembered the day he found out he was going to be a father. His wife Christina nervously held the positive pregnancy test in her hands. That was when her husband found out, and that date would forever remain engraved as the happiest of their lives. 8 months later, that man, full of happiness, could not hold back the urge to cry, because on the other side of the room, in an operating room, the lives of his wife and their 2 children were in great danger. In spite of all the efforts made to try to solve the disaster that the terrible doctor had done to young Christina, the damage had already been done, and after an hour of intense battle, the beating of her heart stopped. Meanwhile, the doctors had still not managed to get the twins out of the womb. It was only a matter of time before the babies would suffer permanent damage or end tragically. So the medical staff tripled their efforts to resuscitate Christina's lifeless body, while another group of specialists tried to extract the babies from their mother's womb, no matter what. Fortunately, this young mother proved to have an unbreakable will, and like an angel, she rose from the dead to bring her children back to life as God intended. The woman's heart began to beat again, and with an almost impossible maneuver, the doctors were able to bring the twins to the earthly plane. Both babies were healthy and beautiful, so much so that they touched the hearts of Alexis and Christina's relatives. These two little ones, named Gabriel and Milagros, brought a little joy back to the family in these hard times. However, the celebration did not last long, as Christina's diagnosis was much worse than anyone imagined. The operation necessary to remove the babies from the womb had done a lot of damage to the body of the poor young woman, who had lost her pulse for 12 minutes. Fortunately, the doctors managed to revive Christina, but there was a very high risk that the woman would remain unconscious forever, or, in the worst-case scenario, suffer a cardiac arrest that would end her life. At that moment, Alexis was devastated inside, and with tears in his eyes, he held his babies while remembering his tender wife. As the days passed, it became increasingly clear that Alexis's life would never be the same again. He now had to care for his two children alone, while secretly mourning his comatose wife. Until one winter morning, when rain and thunder stalked the sky, Alexis could stand it no longer, and in a fit of madness, as the incredulous and astonished gaze of all the doctors and nurses at the hospital watched, the man went out into the storm, wetting every part of his body with the water from the falling sky, and with his hands raised high, he shouted, "God, why have you abandoned me?" After saying this, as if it were a divine sign, lightning struck the ground, leaving poor Alexis unconscious, who in his desperation found no other way to take out all the rage and frustration he felt with the Creator for having placed him in that situation. Upon receiving the impact, the man was taken to the emergency room, and for a moment, his heart also stopped. However, Alexis says that after receiving the shock, he did not feel any pain. He was just transported to another earthly plane where there was no suffering and everything was love and happiness. In that place, the air smelled of roses, and the ground was like a small stream running towards a bright light. It was there that Alexis got to see his beautiful wife Christina again, as they both appreciated the incredible creation of the Almighty. For a moment, they were both tempted to cross over to the beyond, to feel that infinite peace forever. No pain, no evil, just the two of them for eternity. But they could not go that way, for they still had a pair of beautiful children to care for. So it was that Alexis and Christina held hands. Full of illusion, they took a step back to return to earthly life once again, and as if it were a miracle, the heart monitors began to register the couple's heartbeats again, and both, at the same time, woke up from their long sleep. If you liked the story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it with your friends and family, as it will directly support this channel. Thank you very much, and blessings.